What's up guys, it's Talon. Today we have an item guide for you. Now this is going to be just me going over an overview of how the items work and what champs typically use them. I'm not going to go super into depth because that would be way too long of a video. We're going to have this into 4 parts based on physical, magic, defense, and boots. That way it's going to be broken up a bit more concisely because it took about 30 minutes to record this physical part. So it's going to take quite a while to record all of this. Definitely like and subscribe if you like the video because it does take a lot of effort to make this type of video, but I hope you guys enjoy and let's get right into it. Alright guys, so I'm not going to spend too long on any individual item. If you have specific questions about items in the comments, let me know. But as a whole, we're just going to go over the overview of how the item works and who uses it. So starting off again with Nash Tooth. So Nash Tooth gives you 45% attack speed, 20 ability haste, and then it gives you a unique passive, which is you either get 30 attack damage or 60 ability power. And that's going to depend on what you have more of overall. And then additionally, another passive that it has is when your basic attack hits an enemy, it gives you 15 bonus magic damage alongside 25% bonus AD and AP turned into bonus magic damage. So this is not good on that many champions, but it is good on champions who like to auto attack and are also AP champions. Champions like Kaisa can utilize this item quite well. As a whole, again, it's not really used on that many champions. Sometimes Teemo uses it, but those are really going to be the couple few champions that actually use this item. After that, guys, we have Guardian Angel. It gives you 40 attack damage and 40 armor, and then it gives you the Resurrection passive, which if you actually die, it ends up restoring 50% of your health and 30% of your mana after 4 seconds of giving you like a stasis, right? And so this item is really good in the champions who are going to burst you down and who are also AD. So bruiser champions like building this, or sometimes a little bit tankier champs, but typically bruiser champions like Xin Zhao, Lee Sin, some of these types of champs will build it in rare cases if they're against a lot of Zeds, a lot of AD, Fizzes, you know, champions that can one-shot them like this. But as a whole, this item is a bit expensive and not the most valuable item as a whole. Can work out again on these champions like Vi and Zhao, those types of champions. And for GA, it's also important to mention that if you are a Fed AD carry, you can build this item 4th or 5th item if you're into a lot of AD champions as well. After that, we have Bloodthirster, and this is mainly an ADC item. It gives you 50 attack damage, 25% crit, and the passive gives you 12% physical vamp, and you gain 11 to 25 attack damage and 10% attack speed when your health is above 50%. So it keeps you topped off and then gives you bonus stats when you are topped off health wise. So this is really good into poke champions because having healing into poke champions helps you deny their poke really effectively because you can heal up off waves and stuff like that. Additionally, it gives you really good stats because of all the attack damage. So it's a very good starter item for many ADCs. And this is going to be one of the main starter items for ADCs. And we'll speak about the other ones as we get into the rest of the video. After that, we have Blade of the Rune King. Blade of the Rune King gives you 25 attack damage, 35% attack speed, the same passive physical vamp that Bloodthirster gives you with the 12%, and then your attacks will also deal bonus physical damage equal to 6% of someone's current health on hit, and if you're a melee champion, it does 9%. The minimum damage is 15 and the max is 60 versus monsters, so not the best in terms of jungle overall, but still fine. And then you also have this other passive, Drain, which when you hit a champion, if you have 3 attacks, hit someone, you will end up doing some extra damage to them and becoming faster, getting more movement speed. So it's kind of good for kiting as well. So the types of champions that will use this are going to be sometimes AD carries and sometimes bruisery champions. Both of these, obviously all AD champions, are going to utilize this quite well, but only when they're into really tanky comps. Because of that percentage health damage on hit, you're going to want this when enemy team has multiple tanks, when there's like a Mundo that you can't kill, when there's these other type of champions that you can't kill. Blade of the Rune King is going to be a very effective item choice. Alright, so after that we have Rune Hurricane, which is a very seldom used item, but does have its niche scenarios. So it gives you 35% attack speed, and then it gives you a passive where your attacks will strike 2 more people, which will deal 55% AD in that area. And then these strikes are can crit, and they also do trigger on hit effects. And then you have an additional passive, which is similar to Nash Tooth, where you either get 20 attack damage or 40 AP. And so this type of build, again, is going to be pretty useful on a build with like Nash Tooth, and these types of on-hit builds is how we refer to it. When we refer to on-hit builds, we mean builds for AD carries that use things like Blade of the Rune King, Rune Hurricane, Nash Tooth, Wit's End, because these builds have, or these items have on-hit effects. Additionally, I forgot to mention that you also have Wind Blade, which gives you an additional 15 bonus physical damage, again, on hit, you can see there. And basically what on hit means is anytime that you hit an auto attack, or you have certain abilities that trigger on hit effects, for example, Ezreal first ability triggers an on hit effect, and things like these will allow you to actually deal decent damage to people. Champions that utilize Runeons, again, really well. AD carries mainly. Certain AD carries like Kai'Sa on these on-hit builds can work with it. Jinx really likes this because of her rockets, but there are going to be not very many champs. Twitch is another one who really utilizes this item well, but generally those are going to be some of the few champs that do like this item. Then we have Youmuu's Ghost Blade, guys, and this is an AD assassin item mainly. It gives you 55 AD, 15 ability haste, and then it gives you that passive, which gives you 15 armor penetration, which is quite a good amount of armor penetration. Additionally, moving will build momentum, which is similar to like how the energized passives work, or how fleet footwork works. It grants up to 40 movement speed at 100 stacks, and then once you attack, it removes the momentum. The stacks will then decay during that movement, and then when you're attacking, once you had that max momentum, you get more attack speed. So it's kind of really good on auto attacking, but also on AD assassins. So Jace loves this item, for example. Zed, very useful, loves this item as well. It's kind of the default starter item on most AD assassins, like Talon as well. And then you only switch your item, your starting item, if you need a different one in a unique scenario. But this is going to be a part of often what we call a lethality build. And when we talk about lethality builds, we mean builds with a lot of armor penetration, again, because these are going to be for those AD assassins and those ability-based AD champions. And so the other really starter item oftentimes used in these armor penetration lethality builds is Duskblade. And so Duskblade gives you also 55 AD, and it gives you 10 ability haste. Now the uniqueness about this item is it gives you an additional 3 armor penetration compared to Youmuu's, which is the highest amount of armor penetration any item gives in the game at 18. It also has a really fun passive, which is really similar to Stormrazor in that your first attack will deal some extra bonus damage to someone, and it'll slow them by 99% for 0.35 seconds. So you basically get a really short but effective slow on someone when you auto attack. The same type of champions that use Youmuu's also use this item. The only real difference is that Youmuu's is going to be better in the jungle more often because it's going to have that additional movement speed, allowing you to clear camps quicker. While Duskblade is going to be better for champions who really like to sneak up on their enemy because that slow is going to allow you to continue to chase them down after getting that initial hit on them. Then we have Seras Grudge. Seras Grudge gives 400 max health and then has a passive where you get 50% base attack damage as bonus attack damage. So basically, say that your champion has a base attack damage of 100, you get an additional 50 attack damage when you have this item. So that makes it typically better to build on like a second, third, fourth item when your base AD is a bit higher. Additionally, it gives you a lifeline passive, which puts you under 35% health, or when you get put under 35% health, you get a shield equal to 75% bonus health. So it makes you extremely tanky for a short period of time after you go quite low, and then that shield is going to decay over 5 seconds. Again, and then you also have a Steric's Fury, where if you trigger Lifeline, you then get bigger and you get 30% tenacity, so it's harder to get CC'd once you get lower as well. So this is an amazing bruiser item. For pretty much any bruiser likes it. It's going to be best when you're into mixed damage types because it gives you health, which is a stat that's universally strong, versus, you know, obviously armor or magic resist is only going to be good into one or the other. So this is going to be good on champs like Viego, Jace sometimes like using it later, Volibear, Vi, Xin Zhao. Pretty much any bruiser champion does like this item in those types of scenarios that we described. All right, guys, so now we have Infinity Edge. Infinity Edge gives 60 AD and 25 crit. And then it gives you an additional passive where your crits will now deal 205% damage instead of 175% bonus damage. And so this is going to be obviously an AD carry item, and it's going to be best third or fourth item once you have a lot of crit, especially on champions who really like utilizing attack damage, but really almost any AD carry is going to like this third or fourth item most of the time. After that, we have Mortal Reminder. Now, Mortal Reminder has 2 different types of champions who use it. That's going to be AD carries, and that's going to be, again, AD assassins in lethality builds. So first off, it does 30 attack damage. It gives you 25% crit. It gives you a unique passive where you get the Last Whisper passive where you do 16% to 30% armor penetration based on your level. So when you're level 1, it'll be 16%, level 2, 17, level 3, 18, and so on and so forth. And also dealing physical damage to enemy champions applies 50% Grievous Wounds. And Grievous Wounds is something we really need to understand because Grievous Wounds means anti-healing. So now your enemy will heal for 50% less. So this item has to be built when you're into champions who heal a lot, like Soraka, Aatrox, and whatever. And it's also extremely important to note that the component that actually applies anti-healing is called Executioner's Calling, and it only is 800 gold. And so building this early on in the game into a lot of healing is extremely important. And then you can finish Mortal Reminder on 3rd or 4th item, even if you do the Executioner's Calling before you even finish your first item for that anti-healing. Additionally, again, about the champions that this is useful on, it's going to be most useful on AD carries, 3rd or 4th item. The armor penetration is also nice into these tankier matchups, so when you see people building a lot of armor, it's also good. And then also, champs like Jace, Zed, right, these lethality champions, once again, will build this 3rd, 4th item in a lot of builds regardless, because the armor penetration is super good for them at this point in the game. Mathematically speaking, the damage you're going to get from this item is going to be higher, usually on your 3rd item, compared to any of these flat pen items. And when we say flat pen, we mean the ones that just give, 15 straight pen or 18 straight pen, whereas this one is a percentage-based penetration. Bruisers can sometimes use this as well in their more damaging builds. Fiora, for example, or other champs can sometimes utilize it, but not typically. After that, we have Manamune, which is a really unique item. It gives you 25 AD, 300 mana, and 20 ability haste. And then it has the passive where it grants attack damage equal to 1.5% of your mana, and it refunds 15% of all mana spent. And then it has this thing called Mana Charge, where it increases your mana by 10 every time that you use an ability, basically, whenever mana is spent. And it caps at 700 bonus mana, and then this will cause it to transform into a new item called Mura Mana. This also triggers up to 3 times every 20 or 12 seconds, the stacking the mana, and then you can only carry 1 tier item at a time, which are these components here. These 2 components, Sapphire Crystal and Tear of the Goddess, they allow you to stack with 5 and 7 mana to get that stacked up earlier, and then once you finish the item again, you end up stacking 10 until you get it all the way. And then once you get it all the way, you get Mura Mana, which now gives you 1,000 max mana, and this other stats that we had before as well. And then it gives you now attack damage equal to 2% of max mana, and refunds the 15% of all mana spent as well. Additionally, it has a passive where when an attack hits an enemy champion, it drains 2.5% of your current mana, but uses that to deal more damage, which is equal to the amount of mana used. Generally speaking, this item is just really good on mana users who are AD and like using a lot of abilities. So Varus, for example, is one champion who uses this. Ezreal really likes this as well. But those types of champions, generally, it's going to deal a lot of damage. Essentially, what you need to know, it gives you a lot of mana, and that mana is essentially used to deal more damage with your abilities. After that, we have Black Cleaver, which gives you 350 max health, 40 AD, and 20 ability haste. The passive Sunder deals physical damage to a champion that reduces their armor by 4% for 6 seconds. And this can stack 6 times. So if you auto someone or deal damage to them once, 4% of their overall armor is gone. If you auto them and use abilities 3 times, 12% up to, obviously 24%. And then it also has this Rage passive, which means that when you deal physical damage to people, you get 20 movement speed. And then if you get a kill, you get 60 movement speed for 2 seconds. The bonuses don't stack, so if you get, say, you get that 20 movement speed, you're only going to get 40 more once you get a kill, for example. This item is going to be really good on typically, again, lethality building champions. 4th, 5th item often like this. Jace likes it, Talon likes it into tankier matchups because they have, again, the percentage rather than the flat penetration. So it's going to be good on a lot of those types of champions. A lot of bruisers also like using this. Generally, Xin Zhao can use it into tankier matchups. A lot of different bruisers can use this into tankier matchups as a general rule. And just overall, again, bruisers and lethality champions are going to use this whenever they're into tankier matchups. Alright guys, now we have Trinity Force. So Trinity Force gives you 250 health, 30 AD, not 300, 30 AD, 30 attack speed, and 25 ability haste. It also gives you a Fervor passive, which gives you 5% movement speed, just overall. And then you have Spell Blade, which is a really fun passive, where basically when you use an ability, the next attack within 10 seconds will deal bonus physical damage equal to 200% of your base AD. So this item is also going to be really good on a lot of bruiser champions and a lot of AD champions because it gives you so many different stats, which all bruisers and just general AD champions love. And then any champion really using any abilities, obviously, is going to use this well because they're going to be able to use this Spellblade passive very effectively. It's also important to note that this damage is reduced versus structures, and also that you do have that Valor passive where your attacks will grant 20 movement speed and kills will grant 60 movement speed as well. It's important to note as well, since this passive also is with Black Cleaver, I think they're both called Valor. No, actually, they're called Rage, so they changed it so they do stack now. So it's important to note, just generally speaking, if the passives of 2 items are the same, then they do not stack. However, they recently changed it, so Trinity Force and Black Cleaver passives now do stack. So I was mistaken on that, forgot about that change that they made there. But yeah, overall, this item is going to be really good on bruiser champions. Generally speaking, most champs, again, most bruisers like it. Some lethality building champions like it as well. Talon likes using it a lot of the times. But it's generally a really good starting item, first item on a lot of bruisers. After that, we have Maw of Melmorus. Now this gives 55 AD, 45 magic resist, and 10 ability haste. And then it also gives you a passive where 20% of the damage that your attacks deal, or 50% of the physical damage that your abilities deal, is now converted into a magic shield that absorbs 60 to 400 magic damage. So this item, because it gives AD and MR, is going to be really good on bruisers when you need magic resist. So say that you're into 2 or 3 AP champions and you're playing Viego, Bai, Xin Zhao. This is when you're going to want to build this item. After that, we have Magnetic Blaster, which is 25% crit and 35% attack speed. It also has this Fervor passive, which gives 5% bonus movement speed. And then it has Energized passives, which Energized passives, to be clear, do stack, which moving and attacking will generate an energized attack. And then when you have an energized attack for this one, it'll give you a longer range that will both deal damage to things in an area close by, like the old static shiv would do. And again, it also gives you that rapid fire cannon bonus where you get a longer attack. So this is going to be really good, generally speaking, when you're outranged as an AD carry. The stats on Magnetic Blaster are actually pretty poor. However, some champions like Caitlyn, for example, going Storm Razor and then Magnetic second, are going to be a super effective combo to just really burst down people, slow them, and then catch them out. So generally speaking, a champ like Caitlyn or a champ that is just outranged against other AD carries is going to be the one who likes using this item. After that, we have Death Dance, which gives you 35 AD, 40 armor, and 15 ability haste. So this is kind of the rival to Guardian Angel in that it gives very similar stats and is similarly good in the same situations. The only difference is the passive works differently, where champion takedowns will then cauterize remaining damage, which basically what that means is after you kill someone, you get 12% of your max health over the next 2 seconds. And then how cauterize works, 35% of damage you receive, 15% if you are ranged, is dealt to you over the next 3 seconds instead of instantly. So it's good anti-burst item as well. So if your champion really likes getting one takedown and reset and then carrying the fight, then this is going to be a better anti-burst attack damage armor item compared to GA. And then GA is going to be better when you feel like you're going to get bursted down too quick to even really utilize the resets on this item. Okay, after that we have Phantom Dancer, and the way this works, it gives you 25 AD, 25 crit, and 30 attack speed. And then it additionally gives you 5% bonus movement speed. And then you also get 7% bonus movement speed when you attack for 3 seconds. And after attacking 4 times, you get 25% attack speed. So this is a really good attack speed item on AD carries who want to kite a lot. So I like it second item on Tristana, for example. But basically any AD carry is going to like this third or second item if you just need that additional attack speed and you also feel like you need some good kiting potential. After that, we have Wit's End, which is going to be another one of these on-hit items. So it's going to give you 45% attack speed and 50 magic resist. And then the Wit's End passive, basic attacks will deal 15 to 80 bonus magic damage when you're below 50% health. And then dealing damage to an enemy will heal you for, if you're a melee champion, 100%, and if you're ranged, 33% of the damage dealt after the resists are taken into account here. That's what post mitigation means, is basically after resists are taken into account. And so this item is going to be really good on AD carries in the spot that you would want GA, Guardian Angel, if you're into a lot of magic damage instead of attack damage. So fourth, fifth item, if you're into a lot of magic damage, you're going to want to go this. And then on-hit champions can go this earlier. So if you're going an on-hit Kaisa build, an on-hit Varus build, these types of AD carries can also utilize this. And then some auto-attacking bruisers don't mind this item as well. Yasuo and Yone, for example, really like this first, second item because they utilize the attack speed very well if they're into an AP matchup, for example. Then we have Essence Reaver, which gives you 40 AD, 25% crit, and 20 ability haste. So it's passive. After you attack someone, you're going to enhance your next damaging ability or empowered attack to give you 30% more damage based on your overall attack damage dealt with a 4-second cooldown. And then this is also going to reduce your cooldown by 1 second after you hit someone with an attack. And then you're also going to get some mana back for each attack on hit. So this is going to be good on champions like Lucian and other AD carries who struggle with mana a bit. Varus as well is going to be the main user of it. Varus and Lucian, I would say, are the main 2 champs because they struggle with mana a bit, and they also utilize a lot of abilities, so it's going to allow them to use this item quite well. Then we have Storm Razor, which gives you 40 attack damage, 25% crit, and 20 attack speed, or 20% attack speed. And it's going to have the same energized passive that Magnetic Blaster has. The only difference is this energized attack, once you stack it up, will then give you an attack that slows people by 75% for 0.75 seconds, and it's going to deal some bonus damage as well. So this is really good on champions in tandem with Magnetic. So often you go Storm Razor first item, and then you go Magnetic second. Again, on these champions like Caitlyn. Sometimes Kai'Sa likes it in a crit build. You could go it on some other champions. Generally, this is going to be a very offensive item that you use alongside Magnetic Blaster when you do not necessarily need the more defensive starting items such as Bloodthirster, such as Shield Bow, which we'll get into later. All right, I'm not going to lie. I just was recording for the last 6 items that I spoke about and realized that I wasn't recording, so that's very tragic. But anyways, getting back into Serilda's Grudge now. This is going to give you 40 AD, 15 ability haste, and the same Last Whisper passive that Mortal Reminder gives you, meaning you can only build one or the other. Don't build both items. It's going to be, again, the 16% to 30% armor penetration. And then the unique passive that this one has is that when you use an active ability to deal damage to someone or an empowered attack, you're going to slow them by 30% for a second. So this is going to be good in the same scenarios that Mortal Reminder is good into, except when you don't actually need the anti-healing. So when you just want the armor penetration on a lethality champion, typically a lethality champion who uses a lot of abilities, say even Ezreal can use this one, but a lot of Jace, these types of champs will use this one quite effectively. Then we have Solari Charge Blade, which is going to give you 25% crit, 40 attack speed, and 40% attack speed, and 20 ability haste. And then the way this works is using an ability will give you a stack up to 3 stacks. Every stack that you use, once you auto attack, you release a stack, which will deal magic damage to the opponent. So basically, say you're playing Lucian, you use your first ability, then you auto attack. You're going to get that 1 damage stack on someone. Then you use your third ability, and then again, you use another auto attack. That's going to be a second stack release on them. Use your second ability, and then you get another stack dealt to them as well. And you can stack this up to 3 times. So I could use third ability, first ability, second ability, and then start auto attacking as well. And I would have those 3 stacks going off right away. So it's going to be a good burst damage item on champions who utilize auto attacks in between abilities and on AD carries. So Lucian, Tristana, Vayne, these types of champs will like this item quite a lot. Then we have Navori Quick Blades. Gives you 45 AD, 25% crit, and 15 ability haste. And then the way this works, it's kind of similar to Infinity Edge in that it relies on critting. So crits will reduce your non-ultimate ability cooldowns, meaning your first, second, and third ability, by 20% of the remaining cooldown. So champions like Xayah, like Tristana, champions who are AD carries and who use a lot of abilities are going to like this item quite a bit in the 3rd, 4th item slot. Not early on, but 3rd, 4th item is going to be quite nice. Then we have Edge of Night. So this is another lethality item. So again, good on lethality champions. 250 max health, 50 AD, and then 8%, or rather just a flat 8 armor penetration. It also grants you a spell shield. Basically, it means that it's going to block the next ability that hits you. So it's really good into champions like Twisted Fate or Ashe, who have one important ability that's going to CC you, because you can block that ability, and then after that, you can go in on them because they don't have their CC. So it's going to be a good later item on these lethality champions when you need that a bit of a defensive kind of build. Then Divine Sunder, this is going to be the alternative to Trinity Force, which gives you 425 max health, 25 AD, and 25 ability haste. It has that same passive that Trinity Force has, except when your Spellblade procs, it's going to deal 10% target's max health, or 7% if you're ranged, and then it's going to heal you for 7% as melee and 3% as range. So typically it's going to be good on melee champions, melee bruisers, when you're into other tanks because of that percentage health damage. So don't build Divine Sunder and Trinity Force together because the passives will overlap. Trinity Force into squishier champs, Divine Sunder into tankier champs. Then we have Serpent's Fang. It gives you 50 attack damage, 10 ability haste, 15 armor penetration, and then when you deal damage to someone who is currently shielded or going to take a shield within the next 3 seconds, you'll reduce that shield. So it's going to be really, 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 really good on lethality champions when the enemy team has a lot of shields, such as Lux, Karma, Set, stuff like this. Then we have Shield Bow. It's going to give you 40 AD, 25% crit, 15 attack speed, 15% attack speed, and 5% physical vamp. Gives you a lifeline passive, meaning you cannot use this in tandem with Steric's Gauge because the lifeline passives will not stack. The damage that puts you below 35% health will grant you a shield that absorbs 300 damage, and then for a second with a 5-second cooldown. And then it also triggers lifeline, giving you additional physical vamp for the next 8 seconds. So it's going to be really good for surviving into these tanky, or rather into assassins. So if you're an AD carry and you're worried about getting one shot and dove onto, this is going to help you with that survivability early game. Alright guys, so I am going through everything pretty fast, and the reason for that is just I don't want to take too much of your time. I want to make sure that you guys understand how the items work, but I also don't want you guys to sit here bored for 5 hours. So I'm trying to go through these pretty fast. So going on to Collector, 40 AD, 25% crit, and 10% armor penetration. And then additionally, dealing damage that would leave an enemy below 5% of their max health will execute them and give you some additional gold. I'm going to be honest with you guys, this item is awful. Horrible item, bad stats, not very much penetration. The passive is not very useful. So the only time you're really going to use it is on certain crit champions who absolutely love armor penetration. Pretty much Samira, maybe Draven, maybe those two champions, and that's going to be about it, but it's generally not a good item. After that, Kemp Punk is going to have the same Mortal Reminder passive in the sense of the Executioner's Calling, giving you that anti-healing. So it's kind of the anti-healing item for bruisers. And then explaining how it works, it's going to give you 250 max health, 45 AD, 15 ability haste, and then dealing physical damage to someone again applies grievous wounds. It's actually a really poor item overall. This item does suck. However, bruisers sometimes like this item because it's cheap and gives you that anti-healing. So if you have to have anti-healing and you want a bit of survivability on a bruiser champion, then you can go this item. Then we have Spear of Shojin, which is going to give you 300 health, 50 AD, and 25% or 25 ability haste, which is pretty good stats. And then gives you 5% movement speed as well in the passive. And then it also has Dragon Awakening, which increases ability haste of basic abilities by 25% for 10 seconds after you cast an ultimate. So basically, once you ult, you're going to have your abilities up quicker, and then you also get additional movement speed that decays over the next 3 seconds. So ulting is going to give you better cooldowns and more movement speed, so it's going to be good on champions, for example, like Renekton, who like to ult before going in. Sometimes Fiora as well. Generally, when you ult and then you're going in, it's going to give you that movement speed to catch people out. Oftentimes, the bruisers are going to be the ones who use this item. Not the best item overall, but can be useful again on Renekton, on Fiora, those types of champs. And we have Terminus, which is another on-hit item. It gives you 40 AD, 30% attack speed, and then attacks will deal 35 bonus magic damage on hit. And then it'll alternate between light and dark hits. So basically, every light hit will grant 5 to 8 armor and magic resist for 5 seconds, and dark attacks grant 11% armor pen and 11% magic pen for 5 seconds on hit. So basically, it's good on champions who like both dealing AP and AD, and on champions who like having that extra bit of survivability in their on-hit builds. Again, Bane, Twitch, Kai'Sa on their on-hit builds are going to use this item. Then we have Eclipse, guys, 60 AD, 20 ability haste, and then you have this passive where if you hit a champion with 2 separate attacks or abilities within 1.8 seconds, you deal more damage based on their max health, and then you also get a shield that will absorb damage, which is extremely effective. So this is going to be really good on bruiser champions when you're into tanks. So Jace loves this item when he's into tanks. Xin Zhao loves this item into tanks. These types of champs will love this item into tanks. After that, we have Sunder's Sky, which gives you 300 max health, 40 AD, and 15 ability haste. Your first attack against an enemy will crit with a 6-second cooldown, and then you'll deal 160% bonus damage and restore your health equal to 140% of your base attack damage and 6% of your missing health. Basically, long story short, you attack someone, you deal more damage, and you heal. Very, very good on bruiser champions. Amazing item right now. Xin Zhao loves it. Vi is not bad with it. A lot of bruisers really like this item. And lastly, we have Titanic Hydra, which gives you 450 max health, and then it gives you additionally attack damage equal to 15 plus 2.5% bonus health. So bonus health is going to mean the health you get from extra items or runes and stuff like this. So say you had 300, right? You get 2.5% of that as bonus damage as well in this passive. And then every 1.75 seconds, your next attack will deal bonus damage again, which creates a shockwave that deals damage in a small area to targets and enemies as well. So this is really good as a late item or on a champion who builds Heartsteel. So for example, Set or Urgot often go Heartsteel first item and Titanic Hydra second because they can utilize that high health from the Heartsteel, but typically bruisers who build a lot of health like this item.